Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on youtube.com/Rogue Matter, facebook.com/We Are Rogue Matter, twitch.tv/We Are Rogue Matter, twitter.com/Rogue_Matter. Then all of that wonderful stuff gets prepackaged into the greatest podcast known to man, and is available on all major podcasting apps. I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my cohort in crime, the Lord of the Radio himself, Mr. Hassan Godwin, and joined by very special guest. It came from the radio co-host, which Hassan was a part of for many, many years. Mr. Mark Torres, how you doing, sir?
Hello. How do?
I'm doing great. See, it's nice. It's nice to we change it up a little bit, and because of your familiarity with Hassan, it's an easy. Like usually we don't extend this invite because we're just afraid for the guests, but now
I feel privileged.
Yeah, you get the VIP treatment. Do you guys ever when you talk, like when you're actually doing like radio spots, get lost in your own words at some point? Like at one point I've literally said that opening so many times that the words themselves lost meaning, and I didn't even know if I was saying the right. I didn't even know what I was saying. I just knew, like it just came out without. I was like youtube.com/Rogue Matter. I'm like, is that the actual address? I don't know, but that's what it just sounds like it should come out of my mouth. Has that ever happened, Mark, when you guys were doing the radio?
Yeah, because I have the same spiel over and over and over, and you just kind of hit the same points. And sometimes if you get thrown off, it messes up the whole dialogue. Like
yeah.
One word or a thing, you're like, wait, did that? It doesn't flow
I almost
anymore,
did.
So you have to start over again. Yeah.
I almost went into a black hole, like in my head of like, is that? I almost felt like I was high, like in college when you're like, maybe
Never
I
had the
am.
experience, so
maybe I'm
can't
not
help you
here,
with that.
you know, like I don't know. Like this is it was a very deep microsecond that happened during that opening spiel. So it was pretty exciting. So Mark, you have some cool stuff happening, right? You've got a Kickstarter coming out.
Yes, it's currently happening right now, this very second as we speak. It's called
And where can people get it, and what is it about? Tell us all about it.
It's on Kickstarter right now. It's designated. It's a 30-year story, which actually ties into Hassan very, very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember Hassan, it all came about when Hassan and I were in the New York Academy of Comic Book Arts and Fantasy Illustration. Do you remember that, Hassan?
I don't remember that. I didn't remember the title of it.
I remember being there. You remember the school?
Yes, I remember the school.
And was it toasty warm? It was toasty warm?
Yes, it was always very toasty warm in there, yes.
So it all started back then. So myself and Hassan, I would assume Hassan, I would not take it to go that far, that you also wanted to be in comics, which is why you were there, but I did.
I wanted to be a lawyer, and I just kept getting sidetracked.
I could see you being a pretty good lawyer, actually. I'm not gonna lie. That's you might have made the right choice.
Wait,
you know,
we're all here. Okay.
Usually I'm like, and this speaks nothing to your talent, Hassan, because you're an amazing artist. But holy cow, man, you would be like a killer lawyer. Like you'd be like the guy.
Yeah, I messed up. I should have been a lawyer instead of comic book stuff. But
you could be a comic book lawyer.
Well, I'd feel
it's not too late. It's not too late to be a comic book lawyer.
Yeah, I agree with you.
There's a lot of comic book people who need the law, so yeah,
right.
That'd be a good vocation. Maybe so. Maybe if the Kickstarters fail, that's the next thing. I'm off to law school.
So in the class in the school that we were in, I was there to learn a couple of things, and one thing we learned at the time, if you remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Hassan, that for about $2,000 you can make your own comic, because this was the 90s and Image was just coming out, and they were like, hey, about $2,000 you can make your own comic. And I was like, I think I can make $2,000 aside. Obviously I was wrong, but I thought I could. And the other discussion at the time, Hassan, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, was how do you break into the business without losing your ownership of your character, because that was the discussion at the time, was ownership and creatorship, which is now IP, but back then it was like, how do you maintain control of your characters? So the idea was that you make something that you're willing to lose a piece of to get your foot in the door, and therefore, once you're in the door, you can make the story that you wanted to make. So I had my regular story that I had wanted to do, and then Designated, which was under a different name at the time, was the item to get into, since I was willing to lose. So sadly, it's been 30 years since I made that story.
We don't use numbers here on Rogue Wav.
It percolated, and now it's more important to me than the actual original story that I had came up with that I wanted to use as my main story. So that's how Designated came into inception.
You know what I found is a lot of times people like the effort to put together just one, like anything, one comic, one story, whatever. It feels like such a hurdle that you just feel like, okay, I've done everything I can. I'm going to do everything toward this one goal. And then when it actually happens, you either think to yourself, well, all right, what's next? And the next story comes even easier, or things like come even easier, and now you have the experience. Or, you sit there and you say, no, I've done I remember doing Sire way back when, and I'm like, no, I put everything into Sire. Like the first iteration of Sire was Crossfire, and I didn't get accepted anywhere. Distribution, publishers, nothing. And I'm like, crap. And it took me it took me longer. It took me 4 years to get everything kind of reshuffled. Like it knocked me down so much that it took me a while to get myself back up again. But I think that's what happens with a lot of folks. Like if they put a lot of effort into something, or this one story or whatever the case is, it just doesn't. It takes a while to it's either got to click, or people have to do some real soul searching as to whether or not they want to be doing this comic book thing or not.
Well, if it makes you feel better, what is Mike's name that I always used to call him, Hassan?
I don't know.
Sire guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's
it. It worked. I knew you by Sire Guy for the longest time.
I know, and I love it. I actually love it. It's something that I will forever be proud of, and it's great because it's still going on. I just have to finish issues 12 and 13 now, which are about a year late, but it's okay. They'll get there. They'll get out there. We're busy doing a lot of other.
Guy from now on.
What's that?
I'm gonna call you Sire Guy from now on.
You should. I'm down with that. Go follow me at Sire_Studios.
Sire Guy.
So we'll talk a little bit more designated.
By the way, everybody we ever interviewed on both shows, whenever asked, and I think Mark would invariably or inevitably ask the same question to every comic book creator. It was like, what advice would you give? And every one of them said, don't make comic books. So, obviously this comic book road, it's a hard road to travel.
One guy was like, join the army.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One guy said, be an astronaut. It's easier than making comic books. So there you go.
About it too. I mean, we were just in San Diego. I was just in San Diego with Rogue Matter, and we were actually going through Artist Alley looking for new artists. And one of the questions we kept asking is like, where are your sequentials? No one's doing them anymore because it's really hard. It's not an easy thing, and to be able to do them at a reasonable rate, at a reasonable pace, I don't mean rate in terms of page rate. I mean just actually able to deliver. That was my downfall. That's why Sire is so late, because I thought, well, I'll draw the next version, and I was so dissatisfied with the inconsistency of my artwork that I'm like, no, I can't. And I just hired 2 artists to finish the book, so the book will get done. And now I'm thinking to myself, you know what? It goes back to that age-old question: am I doing an art project, or am I actually making? Am I telling a story? And I have to, sometimes you just have to kind of bite the bullet and just focus on one area. And a lot of that, when you're younger and you don't have any money, it's like, well, I'm just trying to, save on overhead. But at the end of the day, it's a chicken and egg kind of theory. Because if you don't produce work fast enough, you won't make any money. If you don't make any money, you can't produce more work. So it becomes this hamster wheel scenario. So.
It's the 2 out of 3 rule. It's 3 things. You need to have a good, fast, and cheap, but you can only get 2 out of the 3 at any one time.
Yep. No, I agree with that. So we will dive more into Designated a little later. We're gonna go all around the Rogue shortly as well too. But we start off every episode going and diving into what is happening on Rogue Matter right now, and this is the project that I am insanely jealous of. So every time a new issue comes out, I truly encourage. We just launched a We just revamped the website again. It's launched today, so it's even easier to find and read all of your favorite Rogue Matter projects. And then we also have a store there now too, so you could buy them if you really, even though you can read it for free. If you think it's that good, you can also purchase it digitally or in print. Simply go to the store and check that out. But this is Until I Die. It is an homage to the Brat Pack era of the 50s, but what if the Brat Pack were really secretly CIA agents? And I know. It's like, it's one of these concepts where you hear it and you're like, damn it, I wish I would have came up with that. And then you read it and not only is the concept good, but the art and the story is so good that you're like, damn it, I wish I wrote this. I wish I was the one that was actually doing it. This is a very pivotal issue as well. I don't think, so it's funny. It's supposed to be, again, for if anybody's reading this, it's supposed to be an homage to the Brat Pack, but really it's kind of like the Brat Pack is there. But we don't disguise Marilyn Monroe, because I guess Marilyn Monroe is okay to talk about.
She's in the multiverse.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's the same
exactly.
in every universe.
Yeah. So, issue 3, having decided what is truly important to him, Dan Robbo informs the rest of the team he is ending his involvement with the CIA for a life with Marilyn instead. But he arrives at the hotel where he discovers her body, and
and unfortunately, that happens in every universe too.
Yeah,
she doesn't live long in every universe.
Well, check this out. Let's do it. Oh man, wait. All right, no one listening here can steal this idea. It's patent pending now. Marilyn 2.0.
I have no idea what that entails. I don't.
That means she's not dead, and she's maybe she becomes like an adventurer. Oh man, yeah.
Oh boy, those wheels
so it's like the one with Jet Li.
Yes. Every time a Marilyn dies, the Marilyn 2.0 gets stronger, right?
Well, no, let's not say we're going to copy Jet Li the One. Let's say we're going to homage it. We're going to homage it. Oh, I think this could work. I mean, I really think that could. Marilyn 2.0. Marilyn discovers she dies in every single version of the multiverse and has to...
No. Norma Jean discovers she dies in every single version of the multiverse when she becomes Marilyn Monroe. So she avoids becoming Marilyn Monroe, and that sparks off a whole new adventure of that unravels the multiverse in some way.
Oof, man, it's like it writes itself, right?
Yes, it's like butter.
Sometimes you just got to come up with a name, like a title, and it's like Marilyn 2.0. Boom, done. Like, there you go. Done.
You write that one. I'm busy.
You heard it here.
It writes itself.
You heard it here. Copyright and patented 2022 Michael Dolce. No.
Yeah, no. We get freaked out of it. It's always a Michael Dolce production. Don't worry.
I actually just came up with a new idea for a new podcast too. Is you get a bunch of creative people in a room for a podcast and just start throwing out titles and see what they come up with.
The podcast should be called Boom. Boom. Got it.
Boom Studios. We'd be in trouble. Then we'd owe everything. Then everything would be a Keanu Reeves film.
The podcast is just called Boom.
No, I know, but I'm saying Boom would be like, you can't use that name. That's ours.
His marketing mind right there.
You can use the podcast Boom. He doesn't have a monopoly on the word boom.
Yeah, they do.
No, they don't.
They could come to your house and beat you up.
Okay.
It's in the fine print. You never read that?
They could come to your house.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they'll definitely come.
That is the best clause ever in the contract ever made.
No, it isn't. Think how cost prohibitive that is. Like, oh man, we got to go to Wyoming now and beat some guy up. I had a meeting. I had a meeting this afternoon with Spielberg, but nope, we got to go to Wyoming and beat some kid up who started a podcast.
That actually feels like that could be a real thing, though. I'm just saying. It definitely does. Like, because
would you get on with it?
Go check out Until I Die.
That. You get in the bus. It's the beat down bus. You got to drive around.
Look at that bus. See?
He knows it. He knows it.
It's a weekly installment of like 35-second episodes of people like, who are we in the bus to beat down today? And then we get all the lifts.
The beat down bus. That could be the podcast.
Yeah. Do you remember the Sacagapeni, Hassan?
Yes.
What is that? Now?
That's what we would beat him down with the sack of pennies.
Sack of pennies.
Oh, sack. Oh, the.
So, do we have time to go into the story? Or?
Sure.
You do
whatever
it.
you want.
So, one time,
the longer we go, the more we cost Drug Matter money. So I'm down with it.
The one time Hassan and I were in Manhattan together, and we were driving around the city, and a taxi cab driver decided to cut me off and hit my car.
Oh no!
But it was in such a way that my tire went under his thing, so there was no damage. We just kind of we were just kind of stuck for a minute.
Yeah, the fenders were hooked.
Something like that.
The plastic facade fender was hooked on his. I forget exactly how it.
Right, but I just remember there was no damage. It just fit in such an odd way
that was with New York Comic Con. That was one of our New York Comic Con adventures.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I'm the driver and Hassan is a passenger, and the guy, the taxi cab driver comes out and he just starts saying stuff, and Hassan's like, and he gets out, being Hassan, I'm gonna handle this, and he's saying stuff. And we're like, dude, just back the car out. We're good. We're no damage. We're fine. And then we started talking about that. We were making fun of the cab driver. I remember that. And how he was like, my friend. That's all he was saying. And we were talking about how that Hassan was ready to go beat him up with a sack of quarters in a sock.
Yeah, I had a bunch of quarters from the show. I had a lot of change from the show.
Wow.
And
I wasn't going. Okay, for the record, I was going to hit the guy.
But we were just joking about.
Yeah.
I know you would never hurt a fly.
So
that's not true.
Cab driver, maybe,
I killed
not
thousands of flies.
It turned into the. We were like, oh no, it would be a Sacagawea coin.
Yeah, that was when the commemorative Sacagawea penny was out instead of Lincoln. It was like Sacagawea.
So we were like, yeah. So he would hit him. He would go Sacagawea when he hits him with the roll. And I was like, yeah, but we can't afford that, so it's got to be a penny because we're poor.
Yeah.
So it would be a Sacagapenny. So he goes Sacagapenny, and he would hit him with the things like that'd be a great villain to run around called Sacagapenny.
You know,
Sacagawea
was my favorite historical figure, like when I was in middle school, just because I thought that would that's just an awesome that's like the Kool-Aid man. Like you could just come in and just like Sacagawea, like one of those things where it just felt like
just comes through the wall.
Right? Yeah, like every time I would just come in and just do that because
instead of Kool-Aid, she just gives everybody a quarter.
Yeah. So just run out there and Sacagawea, Sacagaquarter, Sacagapenny.
Penny.
It's a whole group of people.
What I like now is that we have completely.
Mark and I don't get high too. That story is a product of us being absolutely sober out in the city.
I bet you'd be less interested in high. I feel like you would be actually. I can't. So I don't. I mean, I've partaked. A handful of times.
Don't get yourself fired.
What's that?
Don't get yourself fired.
No, look, dude, it's legal.
Remember the rule of the show.
I was walking around New York City today. That's the one change that has happened now since marijuana is legal. If you walk around New York City, Manhattan, you smell it everywhere. Like I'm just walking down blocks and now it's like, oh, yep, wow, okay. It's like, and you'd be surprised. It's not like your typical person that would have been smoking weed. Now it's like old ladies just lighting up in the middle. I literally looked around and I saw this old lady with a shopping bag and just clearly lighting up a doobie right next to me. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, hey, it's legal. Go for it and have fun.
Oh my God. This is how non into that stuff I was. I didn't know that doobie was a code for drugs. So it made me think of that episode of What's Happening with the Doobie Brothers. I didn't know the connection until years and years and years later. And they're like, oh, it's a doobie. It's like, wait a minute. So they were the Doobie Brothers. So they were smoking weed. What's happening? Oh my God.
Doing a lot more than that. They were probably doing a lot more than that.
But yeah, so it was like, holy crap. It was a revelation for my life. A lifetime of not knowing.
Yeah.
Out that the Doobie Brothers.
That's why what's his name was Michael Douglas was so upset that they broke up in Romancing the Stone. I mean, they were smoking. They found a crash plane with apparently a Colombian smuggler had crashed his plane, and they found a pile of weed, and so they just started burning the weed because they were stuck in the jungle. And he was reading a newspaper from, I don't know, 20 years ago because the guy had crashed. And he was like, "Oh man, the Doobie Brothers broke up." Then he read the date. He was like, "Oh, when did that happen?" Just to tell you how long that fucking plane had been there.
I love it. We have sufficiently wasted 20 minutes of Rogue Matters time and money. I actually not wasted their time because, quite frankly, well, no, their time, not our time.
This is quality filler entertainment, man.
I agree. I don't think we've done anything wrong here. All right. When we come back, we're going to go all around the Rogue with Mark, and he's gonna answer the question: is Marvel better than Star Wars? When we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture. Joined by Mark. It came from the radio. Torres. You guys are still rocking. It came from the radio, right?
Yes, we are. Every single week we have a new episode. In Westchester County, if you live in that area, it's It's 88.1 FM WARY in Westchester County, but we're also on www.camefromradio.com. New show every week. We on over 40 different podcast places, such as Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, whatever else is out there. If you look for it, you can find us. And we're also on 3 online radio stations at Wednesdays at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. on sci-fi.radio, Eastern Standard Time. Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on BTD.radio. And on Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Indie Bolt Radio.
Very, very cool.
Well done.
Yeah, let us know. Well, Westchester's Westchester's actually the absolute center point for Hassan and I. We both, because I'm in Rockland, he's in Bronx, so it's like that is a convergence. That is a convergence. So that's my unbashful way of saying get us on the show. We'll come out.
It's actually, I don't even go up there. I just send them the file. I record it, send them the file.
Technology, ain't it great? All right. This segment is called All Around the Rogue, where we dive into the headlines of the week. So we're actually we're at this calm before the storm that is She-Hulk, though there are some reviews that are out, and I've seen one or two headlines that are positive so far. So I don't know. I know I saw another headline that it had a, She-Hulk has its first Rotten Tomatoes score, but definitely a lot of articles with the cast of She-Hulk because they're doing their promotional tour, so it makes total sense. And one of those things that came out though is Mark Ruffalo talking about the difference between the Marvel universe and the Star Wars universe in terms of creativity and what the creatives are actually allowed to do. So he actually says that they are that they're similar, but there's the difference with Marvel here, and I'll get the exact quote is, it's not something I worry about. I understand these things run their course and then something else comes along. But the thing Marvel has done well is that inside the MCU, just as they do with the comic books, they let a director or an actor sort of recreate each piece to their own style, their likeness. Marvel generally lets them bring that to the material. If you watch Star Wars, you're pretty much going to get the same version of Star Wars each time. It might have a little bit of humor. It might have a little bit of a different animation, but you're always really in that same kind of world. With Marvel, you can have a whole different feeling, even within the same universe. Now, I got this story from Heroic Hollywood where the writer then disagreed. He said Mark Ruffalo is entitled to his opinion on the Star Wars franchise, but to say that it offers less of a variety of stories is a bit off base. While the franchise, particularly the Skywalker saga, is known to make callbacks, films such as Rogue One, Solo, and even the polarizing Last Jedi have showcased different styles that fit within the universe George Lucas created. Also, new series such as The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan are an exploration of different parts of the galaxy. They go beyond just a bunch of space wizards fighting with laser swords. Meanwhile, one can easily criticize the MCU for much of their projects feeling quite formulaic. Mark, do we talk? Well, Hassan, do you have any comments, a reaction to anything?
I think the article writer was an idiot for including The Last Jedi if he's trying to make an argument. And I'm not even saying that The Last Jedi was bad, and so he shouldn't have, that I think he's an idiot for including it. I'm saying if that's one of the most polarizing movies in the last 20 years. And so it's probably not something I would throw into the equation when I'm trying to defend a point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
Even The Last Jedi was variety. It's and people are like, yeah, and that's the variety we don't want. That's an easy. There's an easy rebuttal to that. So the last thing you want to do in a debate is give your opponent an easy rebuttal. I see where Mark Ruffalo is coming from. But he's not taking into account the fandom for Star Wars, because every time they try to do something different, the fandom pretty much wrecks the entire car and, and everybody walk home. So it's not it's not really a genre that is, or a franchise, I guess, that is conducive to a lot of change, to a lot of variety. There's things, if you have to be very clever to put variety into that. So I'm almost agreeing with Mark Ruffalo, but I'm not. That I don't think that limits it. I just think that it has a finer line to walk than the MCU. Also, the MCU has the benefit of something like 50 years worth of story, and hundreds of titles, of characters all bound together in the same universe. So they don't even have to work really hard to tie Guardians of the Galaxy together with the Avengers.
Right.
You really don't have to work hard because the foundation, the comic books, have already done that for them. So Star Wars has a little more leg work to do in order to kind of branch out. And look, the fans haven't been responsive to a lot of their attempts at branching out.
Yeah.
You could say that turning Boba Fett into a quote unquote good guy was an attempt to branch out, and look how everyone reacted to that. So it's tougher for Star Wars, I would say.
Mark, what do you think? Does Mark a tale of two Marks here? Are you siding with a fellow Mark here?
Us Mark with the K's should stick together usually, but in this situation, I'm like, yeah, I kind of sort of see what he's saying, because if you think about it, Star Wars is Star Wars. You come up to anybody who asks about Star Wars, they're going to say what Star Wars is. It's a certain type of science fiction property. You look at Lego Star Wars, that's a type of humor property, and they can do more stuff because already you have Lego on top of it. So it's the Lego brand over the Star Wars, telling a Star Wars story. Marvel is not a universe. Marvel is a company that makes a whole bunch of stuff: westerns, horror, sci-fi, drama, comedy. They do all that already. So it's like if you go to a library, I want to see, where's the horror section, where's the comedy section, you got that. But if you go to a library, I want Star Wars, you go to the Star Wars section.
That's right.
Kind of where it is. So they can try to branch out if they really want to, but that means kind of reinventing the wheel of what Star Wars means and is, quote unquote, is to the average viewer or listener.
In a way,
and
Star Wars.
I might add, Mark defended his point without bringing up The Last Jedi. That's how it's done. I'm sorry.
Here's the thing: in a way, Star Wars can be Marvel in that sense, right? But it does have to always adhere to the universe that it creates, right? But that's what Marvel does too. Marvel creates a universe that it's basically our Earth, but they're superheroes. DC, obviously same kind of setup. Star Wars is, look, there's planets, there's there's the Empire. Well, if it's set in that time period, there's Jedi. There's certain rules to the universe, but they could also do that. But to Hassan's point, the fans don't let them. The fans don't want them to, and don't let them. And in that sense, there really are two distinct things. Now, I will actually defend his use of The Last Jedi, because I think what Mark Ruffalo was also saying, why he brought The Last Jedi was
before you do that, it
Yeah.
wasn't Mark Ruffalo who said Last Jedi. It was a
No, I agree. No, I know.
It was a
It
person
was the
rebutting
article
it.
writer.
Yeah. Okay.
The Last Jedi stylistically is Ryan Johnson. It is stylistically looks and feels different. So I think what Mark Ruffalo was saying, that Marvel lets the director or the writer come in and be their own thing. It is, I think that's really a matter of opinion more than a fact, because you could literally watch all the Marvel movies and think they're all the same too. I think from a stylistic, not a genre point of view, but generally they all do kind of have to fit a certain look, a certain feel, and a certain formula. So in that sense, I think that's the reason he brought The Last Jedi up, is that much to my chagrin, and I know Hassan your chagrin, because we did a whole episode on it, they let Ryan Johnson do things that we would never want to have happen in a Star Wars film.
I have no opinion on The Last Jedi at all.
What's that?
I have no opinion on The Last Jedi at all.
Well, that's not, if they go back to our Secrets of the Sire podcast, then they can dig that
up.
But
those don't exist. Those are gone.
Hassan was the Star Wars.
Well, that's still out there. I'm still making 0.00003 cents off of every podcast that's there. Eventually,
but I mean that proves the point, though, doesn't it? Because The Last Jedi was completely polarizing and freaked everybody out, and that was quote unquote a different kind of Star Wars movie. So that kind of proves the point of the fans. The fans don't like change.
Yeah.
Especially if it's bad change, like The Last Jedi. But I don't have an opinion about it, though.
So let's take two unfinished projects. Think of the Solo movie that was supposed to be by the Lego guys. And you've heard all the stories about how it was supposed to be more of a wacky comedy. So that was going to be very off track. Mm-hmm. They just shot that down like, no, we don't want that. And then you go to Marvel End, which is the Ant-Man, which is Edgar
Wright. Yeah.
Edgar Wright. Yeah. It was supposed to be Edgar Wright, but it's
right.
Once again, it was supposed to be because they wanted to try something very different, very off key, and they're like, no. So it's they do kind of have that production system where like, no, we want to keep it this way.
I would say there's more similarities to Marvel and Star Wars, the MCU and Star Wars, than there are differences.
Yeah.
As opposed to the volume. I think the MCU has way more volume, and therefore they have way more success stories. Although Star Wars only has one non-success story, which is Solo. Basically, everything Star Wars has put out has been a success in either ratings or, made $1 billion at the box office. But Marvel has greater volume, I would say. But they're both bound by the same rules. They do have to do consistent work in order to facilitate to keep their genre going. I think Star Wars is just more rigid because it's basically space. Like, how do you do something other than space? How do you do something like you can't do Star Wars on a planet. You can't just stay on Tatooine, even though they try. You can't stay on Tatooine for 6 episodes and not go into outer space. You can't go to, whatever other weird planets that they have. You can't go to Dagobah. You can't do a show about the swamp, and not go into space once or twice. They are kind of bound by that aspect of the genre and the name. There's Star Wars. You got to have a war in space. It's not going to work.
You got to have some Star Waring.
Someone has.
Well, no, that's totally different then. If you have just like people knitting,
Yeah, it's not going to work. I don't think people are going to be. This is bold. This is a bold.
It's a bold direction.
Yeah.
You can have a Marvel movie like Paranormal Activity with superheroes. You can do that.
Yeah.
You can't do a Star Wars movie like Paranormal Activity.
You could. I bet you could.
Well, let me rephrase that. You can, but there'll be murder on the streets and blood ran rampant. And you can make a movie however you want to make a movie, but will it make money? That's a whole different thing.
And I mean, the Batman just demonstrated you can you could basically do a superhero horror movie, because that's that the Batman was kind of inspired by Seven, like that's more likened to Seven than it is, say, like the Justice League.
Sure.
So you can do a kind of horror mystery gritty cop drama with Batman, and they kind of did the same thing with the Joker, where they put it, they made it more of a gritty story about mental illness and cops chasing him around the city than they did about him being a criminal mastermind trying to make everybody green, which is basically what the comic book Joker does. So I mean, you can alter the comic book or the superhero genre to suit your needs if you're very clever about it. It's really hard to alter Star Wars to fit another genre. Star Wars is a genre in and of itself.
To piggyback off this, I just brought up an article too. David Lindelof recently talked to the this is off Variety. He talked to the Intuit podcast to discuss his preference.
You guys?
What's that?
Why isn't he talking to you?
Because he's not smart. He doesn't know. He doesn't know.
Well, now we can't get him. We almost. I was just about to announce him on the show next week.
He's listening right now, and now he's upset.
Yeah, now he's mad. He's mad because he
good work, Hassan.
Yeah,
way to go. We almost got.
I was saying he's not smart. He doesn't know where the action's at. That's where the action's at. That's so he would have been with us if he had half a brain. But so
he was talking about his preference for endings, which he said is the opposite mentality of the never-ending Marvel Cinematic Universe. Lindelof shared his belief the sheer number of Marvel movies actually works against the brand because it ends up making each entry feel less special. Quote unquote, it's always going to be hard because once you've got someone's attention, you want to keep it. And so the idea of letting it go and not knowing if you're ever going to get it back again is sort of like it's antithetical to the way that we're wired. He said about the, ending a film and TV series. From a slightly more cynical standpoint, this is a business, it's an industry, and if you make a couple of great Marvel movies, the instinct is we need to make more and we need to expand this. And I had this sort of interior feeling of like, wow, I wish they'd made less because it would make each one that came out a little bit more special. But I watch all of them. People don't want things to end. I do. I think that's an interesting statement.
Things to end.
Well, I know.
I want things to end.
I know.
Like a letter.
I'm going to put an end to all these genres myself.
That's how he became a criminal mastermind.
Yeah,
because he wants things to end.
He wants things to end.
He's going out to stop the Star Wars and Marvel movies from churning out things like butter.
Well, that's the thing, though. This is what makes the statement interesting in comparison to what Mark Ruffalo is saying too. I think that Mark Ruffalo's statement is accurate to an extent, except Hassan, I think you even brought it up. It all feels the same. I think there's something to be said about the oversaturation. Look, we're all not dumb and we're all not naive. We know that this is a business, and there is in no way, shape, or form we are not going to get a bazillion. Disney didn't buy Star Wars for $4 billion, which, by the way, now seems like a steal. Compared to how much money, just what 2 movies made for them. They got the return on investment, but they're going to make more because they want to make more money. So I'm not naive to think that, that they're ever going to make less of something. However, I do think lately there's an argument that can be made, and I agree that I am not as excited for the next, this is phase 4 of Marvel. There's a lot of stuff coming out, and there's a lot of stuff coming out that's not Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Tom Holland. We did have at least Chris Hemsworth Thor, which again has the worst Rotten Tomato score for any of the Thor films at this point, or no, sorry, any of the Phase 4 films, not the Thor films, but the Phase 4 films.
Yeah, but it made it's not on par. So
yeah, no, exactly, right.
Depends on what metric you want to measure everything by.
But from a creative standpoint and from a consumer standpoint, yeah, I mean it's. There is a point of saturation to the point where you might sit there and say, you know what, this just isn't giving me the same feeling that it used to, and for me, I've reached that point personally, a lot quicker when it came to Star Wars, just because I love the original trilogy films. I can tolerate the prequel films. I can tolerate, some of the sequel films. I actually did enjoy Solo, as we talked about. I liked Rogue One. But there is a saturation point to where you're like, all right, I mean, that is the problem with give us what we want, which is more, right? At the end of the day, sometimes more is not better.
Yeah. Hassan, let's go back, Hassan, me and you. We're going to go back. If you remember, when we used to discuss the Marvel movies way back when it first was in its infancy, You said on our show, every single thing is set up for the next thing. There's no ending to any of these movies. It's just, this is set up for the next one. This is set up for the next one. I don't like that. Do you remember that conversation?
I remember.
It's amazing.
Back
Remember
then,
with you,
Hassan
I bring up
knew.
stuff. He's like, I didn't say that. And I'm like, I'm
Hassan-
literally
Hassan
listening to it
knew.
right now.
He knew, he remembered that's how it was back then. So that was what, 10,
The only
15
thing I
years ago?
remember that I definitely prophetically said was, as soon as we get more Star Wars movies, that's going to change the way everybody feels about the prequels, and then everyone's going to hate the sequels.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I
He
said,
also said
because
that-
I
he also
knew.
said that too.
Yeah, and the only reason I said that's not because of the quality of the movies, because they're that is it's all up for debate, that's all up for grabs, but by the irrational dislike that people have for new things in their genre. That as soon as you give them something new, because when I was coming up, everybody hated Return of the Jedi. That was the worst movie ever.
Mm-hmm.
That was the worst. The whole trilogy was ruined because of Return of the Jedi. The prequels came out, and now suddenly all three of the original trilogy were sacrosanct. You know, they were holy. I'm like, well, what happened to Return of the Jedi? I thought everybody hated that. No, Return of the Jedi is a work of art. It completes the story. So as soon as the new movies, the sequels, come out, the prequels get a new a renaissance of their own. So that's the way it's done. But here's what I think the problem is. And I touched on this recently. Generation X doesn't let go. If you, as you say, Michael,
Mm-hmm.
decide that, I'm not, I'm looking at phase, 5 and 6, and I'm not excited by it, might mean that the genre has passed you by. That you're just no longer interested in the genre anymore, right? Because you had your phase,
Yeah.
you had your point of interest. The point of interest has passed, so now you're not interested anymore. But Generation X interprets that as, oh, it's failing. Now it's failing because it's failed to keep my interest. But these studios aren't interested in people in our age demographic anymore. They're not making movies and TV shows and stuff for us. They're trying to snag the next generation of moviegoers. And we are just not, when I say we, I mean the royal we. I'm not talking about the three of us. We are just like too arrogant to let go and will not accept that these things are not made specifically designed to entertain us specifically. And so, I think that's where the problem is. I think that's where the toxic fandom stuff comes from.
You're not wrong in the sense that, yes, but I at least, and I'm just speaking for myself here, I'm able to discern whether or not it's like, well, this was really good, it just didn't do anything for me, versus this didn't do anything for me and it really wasn't very good,
Because
or
it's the entitlement factor that we've have seen grow over the course of the years, of how people are like, well, this is my property, this is my thing.
See that, but
this
that's
is
just
my Star Wars, this is my thing. How dare you change it? How dare you do it for this? And if you don't like it, you're a jerk.
right.
Yeah, exactly. And you got people arguing about who's going to be the next Indiana Jones, because we're going to keep everybody's franchise oriented.
Mm-hmm.
We want to keep making these things, but these actors are getting too old to keep making them.
Oh God,
It's like, oh, we're just going to recast everything. When these people die off, we're going to but now they're not even waiting for people to die. It's like, Harrison Ford's really old.
The character dies with him. He's gone on record.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's got any control over that.
The funny thing is when he dies, then the studio will be like, well, I mean, look, we're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, this is too bad, but the people want more Indiana Jones. Wink, wink, wink. $1 billion. We need another $1 billion.
I would like more Indiana Jones, but I would also like it to be better than Kingdom of Crystal Skull. But that's what Kingdom of Crystal Skull is a great example of.
Quentin Tarantino thinks that's the better, the one of the best Indiana Jones movies. So, like, again, mileage varies. He just put that out. Huh?
I'll fact check you on that one. No, it had potential.
No, I said Quentin Tarantino thinks that's the best. That's his favorite Indiana Jones movie. You don't have to fact check that. That's what he said.
Did he? Did he really?
I'm
gonna goggle that. That's my new search.
Yeah,
that's my new search browser. I don't trust Google, so I have to go to Goggle.
Well, when you have Quentin Tarantino on the show, you can ask him in person.
Yeah.
That's why there you see.
'Cause
Mark,
he's listening
Mark's
right
got
now,
the,
and he wants to
he's
come
got the
on.
right gist of it. Mark, you're hired. Here's the thing. But here's the thing. Like, I can look at Crystal
That means I
Skull.
could take a vacation.
I can look at Crystal Skull and sit there and say, to me, this just didn't do it for me. Not because it didn't ruin my childhood. It didn't ruin Indiana Jones. I didn't like seeing an older Indiana Jones regardless, just because it makes me sad. But that's, that's my own personal issue with seeing, heroes I grew up with aging. That has nothing to do with the film itself, right? But I could sit there and say, the mystery itself, the actual quest itself, didn't hold up to previous quests, and I think that would have actually made for a better film. But I'm not going to sit there and say I don't want to see more because this particular film didn't do well. But I'm also not going to attack the whole thing and be like, wow, I don't know what they're doing and this and that. No, look, they just didn't make as good a film. And I mean, in my opinion, it's just not as good as what the original ones were. But at the same time, I can discern, in my own head, like, okay, it just didn't make a good film, but it wasn't
Thank
as
you,
if.
Aaron.
What's that?
You got a fact check right there.
Aaron just posted the link.
Controversial take. Look at him. When was this? Oh, it was 2 days ago. Oh, no wonder. All right. Interesting.
Well, I
But I didn't say when it was.
I didn't say it was 20 years
No,
ago.
he said Temple of Doom is his favorite.
He said Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was better than Last Crusade. That's what he said.
That Crystal Skull is better than Last Crusade. Yeah, that's a tough one.
No,
He
it's
said
not.
Temple of Doom is his favorite film in the
for
series,
him.
though.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Even
I
though
liked him. I was a big Temple of Doom fan.
I think the best one is Raiders of the Lost Ark, but my favorite one is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And it's, you know what? I won't say that here. Never mind. But because I just saw all of them recently, and I got takes. But yeah, I mean, look, I acknowledge that Temple of Doom is not the best one. It's just my favorite one. There's a difference between that. But again, you're using Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as an example of it's kind of a false equivalence of what I'm talking about, because I'm saying like new Star Wars movies like Boba Fett or the sequels. The reason why I don't really torch the sequels every time they come up, or I attempt not to, is because those movies, I have decided those movies were not made for me. My time with the genre has come and gone. It is not inspiring anymore. It is not doing anything for me anymore. And instead of me saying that the genre in and of itself is bankrupt, which is what a lot of people are claiming, it's just that I am older. I've aged out of the genre.
No, but could you just look at it and just say these weren't good movies? You're allowed to do that.
Because what is good and what is bad is subjective. So I'm accepting the possibility that they might be fine. It might be me, and that's what our generation
it's not you.
Can't
it's
do.
Not.
They're
not good.
Though that's the thing.
No, he's not going to listen.
Everything is because of what everybody agrees it to be. If everybody agreed it to be something else, then it would be something else.
That's very deep.
Yeah, I didn't know what to make of it actually.
That's very moving.
I was back in the I was analyzing my own words as if I was high, and I was just trying to figure
I'm glad
out.
I never got high. It doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
So, I was saying earlier in the first segment, I only a few times, because I never liked getting high because I would smile and giggle a lot, and I fold into myself, like it's almost like the world kind of pushes out and I recede back. It's very, very. Yes, I did mention Aaron. I mentioned 3 times. Yes, I am. Well, maybe I'd be better if I was high.
Kind of unprompted too.
I know. So I like giving insight into my college years because it was a lot of fun, but not getting high. Just didn't go for it. But anyway, all right, Mark, tell us about Designated, and give us the elevator pitch.
Elevator pitch, the short version. All right, it's 2 warring alien races. You have the classic green, gray skin alien type guys. You have the bulky, warlike alien type guys. So you kind of think. Klingons and the Vulcans. They have that going on. They're fighting over a newly discovered power source. And Aaron says no break. So we have a newly discovered power source. The war comes down to Earth. The good aliens have the power source, and they're trying to hide it from the evil aliens. Come to Earth. They find out that the way to hide the power source is to implant the crystals into the minds of humans. And therefore, that's how they gain powers, as a side effect of that. Bad guys come down, try to get it back. And that's the story. It's a very low-key, very small story, very anti...
No. I don't want to hear that. I want to say it's the most epic space battle ever put on printed page.
But that's the thing. That's not. It's completely opposite. Because some people want the subdued. Some people want the anti, which is actually kind of funny if you think about it. Because when I wrote it 30 years ago, when it was drawn 20-something years ago, and it was inked 20-something years ago, it was against type. It had a female lead. It had a multi-ethnic cast.
Yeah.
That wasn't a big thing back then. But now here we are, and the circle, we went all the way around, and this is kind of the norm. So it's very, a very subdued a story. And actually, most of it, it's a 5-issue series where the issue 1 is on Kickstarter right now. It's very subdued, and it kind of happens in like a day. So it's not even like an expansive, long time story. It's a very small, little chunk of story that happens to these characters. One of the other things about it is that one of the unique things about it is because it was already written, because it was already drawn, a pencil, and because it was inked mostly. It's still, I think, Peter Palmiotti, the DC and Marvel inker. He's working on issue 3 and 4 right now, 2 and 3, 4. He's working on that because the pages are all mixed up. We have the ability that we can offer more than just the first 22 pages in the Kickstarter campaign. If we reach certain levels, we can do issue 2, issue 3, issue 4, and a full trade with the one campaign. So that's another thing you can
I see the coloring is very good too.
Yes, the coloring is done by some guy who I met 30 years ago in a comic book school, by Mr. Hassan Godwin.
This guy's notorious. He just follows people around and impromptu colors their pages for them without permission. He's a menace.
Speaking of following around, that's how we became friends. If you remember that story, Hassan, do you?
Yes, the walk to the infamous walk to the train station.
Yeah, so we left the school together. We were walking to the train station, and then he just comes up to me and just starts talking to me. And then we just kept on talking, and then that's how we became friends.
Yeah, that's the last time I ever did that too, by the way.
Oh, so mine.
I don't talk to anybody anymore. Yeah,
I ruined it for you.
Like this didn't work out for me.
And if you think about it, Hassan, had not approached me 30 years ago, we would not be having this conversation right now. You would not be on this show right now.
That
true.
may be very
true. So weird if you think about it.
Well, he'd be on the show.
Stop using the words 30 years. Stop saying 30 years.
So wait, so it's funny you mentioned that, Hassan. When I was younger, I loved the fact, like, I took pride when I reached like a 10-year anniversary of like knowing somebody. Like, that's really cool. Like, oh, now that I feel like there's real meat to it. But as I've gotten older, now the fact that I can say I've known people for like 30 years, some people I've known for like 35 years, I'm like, all right, that's
enough.
Yeah, now
that's enough of that.
We've reached the hourglass has flipped over. We're on the other side of it. Not cool.
I don't need it. Yeah, this is no good for me at all.
Not cool at all. All right, well, Mark, I backed your Kickstarter, so hopefully that helps you get to your destination. It's always difficult running a Kickstarter, and it's always stressful. So I hope you are as stress-free as you appear in real life.
So we've been doing streaming. Peter and I have been doing streaming for most of the campaign. So we're 17 days in. So we've been doing 17 days of streaming on other people's shows. And a lot of questions come up, and certain things, revelations come to you. And somebody asked me about what does it feel like having it at Kickstarter right now? And I'm like, this thing has been so long trying to get out ups and downs and deals and no deals and what have you. I feel like I'm a pregnant woman who's past her due date. I just want to get the baby out. I'm not even like, let's just get it out. Let's finally just into the world. So I'm not even like, and I'm like, all right, let's is this the time? Is this the one that's going to happen? Is this the one that's going to come out? Or is it going to be another 30 years.
This is the one that's gonna work.
So like right now, it's weird because right now circumstances and things are coming into play that this could happen.
Yeah.
It's weird how the pandemic really made the Kickstarter, the crowdfunding campaign explode. So even that, a couple of years back, wouldn't have happened. And then I was supposed to go through it with a publisher. We went our separate ways amicably. We're still good friends, professional relationship. So me doing it on my own was another thing that just kind of fell into what happens.
Yeah.
And I want to give a shout out to our graphic designer. Without her, none of this would have been able to be possible. She has done so many things for just the actual page. She designed a page. She designed many of things that I couldn't even have thought of. So even that, like everything was just falling into place. So this could be the time. So with that, it's like, so I'm gonna have to do everything I can to get it out there. And right now, I'm like, this is as good as it's gonna get. I'm doing as best as I possibly can. So if I fail, I will have no regret because I'm like, you know what? I did the best I possibly could. There isn't anything, if I did this. No, I did the best I possibly could. I got the best team I can possibly get. This is how we're at. But let's get that baby. Let's birth that baby already.
It's a hell of an analogy.
That's what it looks like for a guy to have birth. Get it out there.
I use the bank heist analogy because like it's it's tense. You have plans and then you execute the plan and then you're just really just trying to get the money. You're trying to get the money and get out. By the time it's over, so that you can go and spend this money on what you want to do. So that
without it ending like Heat, where you walk out into a
right, exactly right. You're like, you just drop the bag and you just drop everything else. And then you charge the cops and get shot. And
don't do that part. That part we don't want.
Dead, the zombies just pop up. Like,
yeah, that's it ruins everything.
Less of an analogy and more of a real life thing lately. But, well, Mark, we wish you all the best and great success. Thank you for joining us. Anytime you want, actually, because anytime you're on the show, I'm allowed to make fun of Hassan. That's how it works. It's
that's the rules in the
contract. That stops you all the other shows that we do.
Yeah, but if I bring on guests, right? Then it's already 2 against 1 but now it's 2 against 1 in my favor this time because this is Mark's technically your guest, even though I've known him for a while. So, and Mark is all too happy to
because it's all out of love. It's all out of love for Hassan.
That's right.
We love Hassan.
I try to tell him that every week, Mark. Every week.
He knows that. I know nothing. Hell, what? How did we get into the show to begin with? I couldn't have done it without you. You didn't believe me that we were going to make the show. I remember this conversation. I was like, hey, we're going to do a radio show. And what did you say? What's your another story?
I was like, yeah, sure, whatever.
And then a couple of months later, I'm like, okay, this is what we got to do. And then what was your reaction?
It's like, that's real? Like, I have to actually go on the radio now?
You're like, oh,
so,
yeah. This will go nowhere. So I'll just say yes. Why not? That also taught me the lesson. Never just say yes. Always examine things before you say yes.
It's funny because like fortune cookies, like one of the fortune I got was like always say yes.
Yeah, don't. I got one and I have it. It's on my fridge. It says next time have the shrimp. That was my fortune.
That's actually the worst. That's the worst advice.
I thought it was the greatest fortune I ever got, so that's why I put out like this. This is shameless. This is absolutely shameless. And then there was another one. I think Phil got one years ago. Phil Colligan. He said, "Look behind you," which was pretty funny. And then he refused to look behind him after that. So it was pretty funny.
It's pretty good. This has been the Rogue Wave podcast. I want to thank our guest Mark Torres. Next week, it is before our summer break. It's our last show before summer vacation because I'm going on vacation. And I just don't want to do another show. We have got She-Hulk to review and to react to and look at whether or not we have another Marvel hit or is this too far? They do a lot of different things in this. Plus, they're going to reintroduce a hero that we are all too familiar with and is returning to the Marvel Universe too. So we got a lot to react to. Plus, the 5th installment of Kingdom of Tundo comes out. So we'll discuss that. And, who knows? In between now and next week, lots of things can happen. This has been the Rogue Wave podcast. We will see you all next week. Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rogue Wav podcast. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and tune in every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern for a brand